She slammed her fist on my door and yelled, "Open up! Police are here for you!" I didn't even know what she was talking about. I was inside my own house on my own land. But through the blinds, I saw two officers standing behind her, hands on their belts, waiting like they already believed her story. My stomach tightened. She was holding a paper in her hand, waving it like some kind of warrant. "This property isn't yours anymore. The HOA has voted you're trespassing," she shouted. My neighbors peeked from across the street, whispering, pulling their kids inside. It felt like the whole world was against me. One of the officers stepped forward and barked, "Sir, step outside with your hands where I can see them." My heart raced. I wanted to argue, to shout back, but something in me said wait. Just wait. Because she didn't know who else was in the house, and right then, I heard the back door creak open and boots clicking against the floor. The fake confidence on her face started to shake when she saw a shadow move behind me. The door swung wider, and my wife stepped out, still fastening the last button of her crisp uniform. The gold badge on her chest caught the porch light, and the two officers froze mid-motion. Their hands dropped from their belts as if someone had cut their strings. Karen's jaw opened, but no words came out. "What exactly seems to be the problem here?" my wife asked, her voice sharp, steady, the kind that could silence a room full of recruits. One of the cops stuttered, "Ma'am, we were told this man was trespassing on HOA property." My wife narrowed her eyes, pulled out her ID, and held it up. The silence was thick. "Funny," she said, "because this land deed has my name on it, and the county records back it up. So unless you're planning to arrest the rightful owners of this home, I suggest you think very carefully about who's lying to you right now." Karen's face turned red. She tried to step forward, shoving the paper in my wife's face, but the officer raised a hand to stop her. That's when she hissed through her teeth, "You people think you're above the rules, but you're not done with me yet." And in that moment, I knew. She wasn't going to stop. This was only the beginning. Karen's threat hung in the air like smoke, but she stormed off before anyone could answer. The officers exchanged an awkward glance, muttered something about miscommunication, and backed away to their car. I thought maybe it was over, until I saw her across the street, standing in her driveway, dialing her phone with trembling fingers and a twisted smile. "She's calling someone," I whispered. My wife didn't take her eyes off Karen. She won't stop. People like her never do. Minutes later, the growl of a tow truck echoed down the street. Headlights blinded me as the truck reversed into my driveway. The driver jumped out, chain in hand, like he'd done this 100 times. "We got a removal order," he said flatly. "This car's HOA property now." My fists clenched. "That's my car, paid off, titled, in my name. You can't just take it." He shrugged, hooking the chain to my bumper. Karen stood at the curb, recording everything with her phone. "Smile for the camera. You won't be smiling when you're walking to work tomorrow." But as the truck strained to pull my car, a loud metallic click stopped everyone cold. My wife had pulled out her body cam, the same one she used on duty. The red light blinked as it recorded every word, every move. "Good," she said calmly. "Let's make sure this is all on record. I'd love to see you explain in court how you own someone else's car." The tow driver hesitated, looking from my wife's uniform to Karen's smug face, and for the first time that night, I saw fear flicker in Karen's eyes. She wasn't expecting a fight like this.
Karen's smile twisted into something darker, and she leaned toward the tow driver. "Don't stop now," she hissed. "I'll handle the fallout, just do it." But the man's hands froze on the chain. He glanced at my wife's badge again, then back at Karen. "Lady, I'm not losing my license over this," he muttered, yanking the hooks off my bumper. Karen lunged at him, grabbing his sleeve, but he shoved her hand away. "Call someone else. I'm not part of this circus." He jumped into his truck and peeled off, leaving Karen standing in the middle of the street, shaking with rage. She spun back toward us, her phone still recording, her voice rising. "You think you're clever? You won't win. I've got people higher up than you. Real authority." Her words dripped like poison, but my wife only folded her arms, calm as ever. "Then bring them," she said quietly, "because every second of this is already evidence." For a moment Karen froze, eyes darting left and right as if she'd been cornered. Then, with a fake smile plastered on her face, she whispered into her phone again. Within minutes, 2 SUVs rolled up, headlights glaring. Men in cheap black uniforms stepped out, badges clipped to their belts. But something about them felt off. No patrol numbers, no names, no standard gear. They looked official from a distance, but up close, they were just props. Karen pointed at me like she was the queen of the street. "Arrest him," she barked. "He's refusing HOA orders." And that's when my wife let out a small laugh, low and sharp, because she had recognized those badges immediately. The fake cops spread out like they'd practiced it in a mirror, trying to look intimidating. One of them even rested his hand on a holster that was clearly empty. Karen lunged at them, grabbing his sleeve, but he shoved her hand away. "Call someone else. I'm not part of this circus." He jumped into his truck and peeled off, leaving Karen standing in the middle of the street, shaking with rage. She spun back toward us, her phone still recording, her voice rising. "You think you're clever? You won't win. I've got people higher up than you. Real authority." Her words dripped like poison, but my wife only folded her arms, calm as ever. "Then bring them," she said quietly, "because every second of this is already evidence." For a moment Karen froze, eyes darting left and right as if she'd been cornered. Then, with a fake smile plastered on her face, she whispered into her phone again. Within minutes, 2 SUVs rolled up, headlights glaring. Men in cheap black uniforms stepped out, badges clipped to their belts. But something about them felt off. No patrol numbers, no names, no standard gear. They looked official from a distance, but up close, they were just props. Karen pointed at me like she was the queen of the street. "Arrest him," she barked. "He's refusing HOA orders." And that's when my wife let out a small laugh, low and sharp, because she had recognized those badges immediately. The fake cops spread out like they'd practiced it in a mirror, trying to look intimidating. One of them even rested his hand on a holster that was clearly empty. Karen strutted behind them, recording with her phone, her voice shrill with excitement. "Finally, someone who knows how to deal with people like him. Take him away," she demanded, as if she owned the whole block. My wife stepped forward, calm but razor sharp. "Interesting badges you've got there," she tilted her head. "Mind telling me which department you're with? Because I know every precinct in this county, and none of them hand out plastic shields from a pawn shop." The leader stiffened, fumbling for words, but Karen jumped in, desperate. "They don't need to explain themselves. The HOA gave them authority." She puffed up like she'd just declared martial law. My wife smirked, pulled her radio from her belt, and pressed the button. "Dispatch, I need a unit at my location. Possible impersonation of law enforcement." The color drained from the men's faces. One of them cursed under his breath and backed toward the SUV. Karen spun around, eyes wide. "Wait, what are you doing? Don't leave!" But the fake officers were already scrambling back into their vehicles, tires screeching as they sped down the street. Karen's phone trembled in her hands. "You'll regret this," she snapped, trying to cover her panic. But I saw it. The crack in her armor. She wasn't untouchable anymore. Still, she didn't run inside, she didn't hide. She just stood there, breathing hard, eyes locked on us, like a cornered animal ready to bite. And I had no idea what she was about to try next. The silence after those SUVs disappeared was louder than the engines had been. Neighbors had gathered at their windows, some even stepping onto their porches, whispering about what they'd just seen. Karen's hands shook, but she raised her chin high, forcing a grin that looked more like a grimace. "You think this is over?" she said, her voice trembling. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You'll pay for that." She stormed across my lawn without hesitation, heels stabbing the grass like knives. I stepped forward to block her, but she shoved a crumpled envelope against my chest. "Final notice," she spat. "The HOA board has voted. You and your wife are evicted, effective immediately." I unfolded the paper and my stomach twisted. It wasn't even official, just a letterhead she'd printed off her computer, fake signatures scrawled in pen.
But the crowd across the street couldn't see that from where they stood. To them, it looked real. Murmurs rippled through the neighborhood, and Karen smirked like she'd just won the whole block. That's when my wife pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, and held it up. The HOA's actual bylaws appeared, every page bookmarked and highlighted. Funny thing, she said loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I've got the real rules right here. And nowhere does it say Karen Jenkins can evict anyone. Gasps spread through the crowd. Karen's smirk faltered, her face twitching. She tried to grab the letter back, but I held it high, letting everyone see the cheap forgery. She's been lying to all of you, I said, my voice steady, and she just tried to use fake cops to do it. The neighbors stared at her in silence, and for the first time, Karen didn't look like the queen of the street. She looked cornered, desperate, and more dangerous than ever.